Hi and welcome to a Jeskai cEDH deck tech video for Kratos' Stoic Father and Aetheros' Impulsive Son. This is from the War of the Gods game series, and it is basically a kind of combat-orientated The One Ring in the Command Zone concept, as Kratos, the Stoic Father, is going to generate experience counters, and the Son is going to draw cards equal to that experience counter, which means that just like the One Ring, the accumulation of value increases over time. But how good is that inside a cEDH power level, and how good is it in a tournament? Well, that's what we're going to talk about inside this deck tech video. But on the topic of tournaments, a collaboration with Critical EDH, they have a Discord server where they have people playing an online Discord server playing cEDH game in a cEDH league with prizes and tournaments inside that league concept. And if you're a patron of mine, you're allowed to play on their Discord server for free for the current month, which will give you unlimited access to how many games as possible and joining in on some of their events. Link in the description below to this link tree, but also to my Patreon page if you're interested. But also all of you current already my patrons, you should check it out. But now back to this deck tech video. Is this something you wanna play in that league of sorts? So the One Ring is a very strong card, that's unknown and a given. And what if we could have it in the command zone? With free color identities to it, by the way. And as we do have the color identity of red in here, we get access to Underworld Breach and Lion's Eye Diamond, which is currently very high ranked in my concept leaderboard. It's a very strong, efficient way to win games currently, proven by a lot of players. And a very big personal choice of victory condition for a lot of cEDH players too. And with the addition of blue color identity, you get access to Brain Freeze, and now you're cooking. Now you can really build that win concept. Together with the color identity of white, that gives you Enlightened Tutor to find the breach. Or just Tutor for Rhetoric study. Works great too. But now what? How is this deck going to operate? So we have the One Ring kinda in the command zone. He's a little bit weaker, he needs experience, so you kinda have to have the Commander Father in play. So to build up his experience count, but then it costs mana to activate. But what if we could untap him? This is something we're already doing with the One Ring, with the keys. Seed 1 Muse you can't play inside this deck, but you get the point. There's a lot of tricks to untap an artifact, but there are tricks to untap a creature. And you never say no to dogs, right? So imagine this, you have your commander in play, the Son, and you've built up a lot of experience. He taps for a lot of mana, you draw a bunch of cards, you cast a rock, he untaps because of the Chakram Retriever. And then you can have something like a Affetto Alchemist that can untap artifacts by tapping him. And the Chakram Retriever could untap the Affetto Alchemist as well. You could also have your Mockingbird come into play as a Bloom Tender or a Bird of Paradise, so that it becomes a mana dork that you can untap with the Chakram Retriever as an example as well. But we also have Birgi, God of the Storm. So when you're trying to like sculpt this kind of together, when you're trying to storm off and win potentially with this tap and draw card master, then something that is going to help you generate mana throughout this, just like how Chakram Retriever could untap your Mockingbird, Bird of Paradise, etc. Birgi would help out too, a lot. But there's also a beautiful synergy with Birgi here. You see, she is a god, she's a Viking god, which is kinda lore-wise on point here in the art concept. But whenever Birgi attacks, that is also going to generate an experience counter for you. In other words, I think Birgi is more or less auto-include. You see, you could accidentally walk into a sort of trap where you're starting to include a lot of gods. You're making a god tribal deck. And a risk here is that you're accidentally making a bad deck by including a bunch of, let's go casual stompy god cards, just to build up more experience faster. And that's going to be good only when you have your commanders and the synergy going. When you don't have the synergy going, you're ending up with a bad deck. However, Birgi is good on her own. When you're running that Underworld Breach, Stormwind without the commander, Birgi will help out. So, she's good on her own, but there's also synergy. Still on the topic of storming off and win with the commander, there's a bunch of rituals like Dramatic Reversal that will untap your commander and all of your mana rocks that will allow you to keep on going, drawing more cards with the commander and build mana. You see, in Storm, you want every card to do two things, both if possible. One, generate more mana than you paid for it. Second, draw cards at the same time. With this, you're drawing into more Dramatic Reversal variants and into more card drawing effects. We also have things like Hidden Strings, that is a smaller variant to Dramatic Reversal. However, there's a cool synergy here in the combat concept. You see, you can cipher this onto your father god version, the Boros. So whenever he connects, you're getting a secondary Hidden Strings cost. And yeah, that's just beautiful. How you're going to do this is that you go to combat, you get the experience counter trigger from going to combat, you activate your Epheros, draw cards, then you connect, you untap your Sun, and you draw cards again. Beautiful. We also have 1000-year Elixir, which is going to give your commander pseudo haste. Like, you can activate the Sun the same turn you cast him. On the other hand, he costs 3 mana, and then 3 mana to activate, so that's like 6 mana. That's Consecrated Sphinx mana, so I don't know if like that's a necessity. However, the part where pay 1 mana, tap this, untap target creature allows you to activate him a secondary time. So yeah, there's something there, definitely. We also have the beautiful card Training Grounds. So we need to reduce the cost in activation cost of the boss, as the goal is quite clearly to try and make the commander into a huge value engine and potentially into a combo here where we basically draw our entire deck. Training Grounds is perfect here, because once again, you need to generate mana through the card drawing digging concept, and Training Grounds is not generating mana, but reducing the demand of mana. And the same thing with Sirda the Dawn Waker, also reducing the activation cost of your god. Now, if you have both Training Grounds and Sirda in play, it doesn't do anything, you only need one of them. If you have the other one, you simply don't cast it. We're gonna talk more about the combo, but a side note, there's a small synergy here with the Kratos and Sirda, as Sirda can make creatures unable to block, helping you connect. Now, you don't actually need to connect, but in the end, there is a small Voltron potential here, as Kratos is basically building up a Voltron power, he's boosting himself, so in a very strange and long game, it could go down to you just go for player removal by making your commander punch them out of the game. But still, I want to emphasize, this is the main reason why we play Sirda the Dawnwaker. Or, well, not entirely true. You see, there's a 2-card combo with Sirda and Grim Monolith that is going to generate infinite colorless mana. And from this point, it's gonna be easy to draw through your deck with your commander, because now you can activate him without paying. Okay, you pay mana, but you have infinite colors, so the activation cost is literally gone, and the cost of casting every colorless, no mana color identity needed to cast artifacts is just going to be free to cast. So if you have the Chakram Retriever in play with these two, your commander, you're probably going to storm off and win in that position. And we also have the Basalt Monolith that is basically doing the same thing. Now, we don't have the color identity of green. If we would play Kinnan in this build too, because he's going to be a big ritual, you could say. And he's kinda good in general. So we kinda covered the main concept of the deck. We are a Jeskai Breach deck with a the One Ring in the command zone, where we're trying to have cards synergize with the sun, making his card draw potential into a storm potential, where we could win from the command zone with various different combinations of cards to basically boost his ability, making the trick bigger, you could say. But how are we actually going to finalize it? Like, how are we going to kill all of our opponents? The answer is kinda simple and a little bit on synergy too. There is a 2-card combo called Heliod, the Sun Crowned, and Walking Ballista. So you give the Walking Ballista lifelink and you make it enter with 2 counters on it. We're gonna get to that point soon because there's something interesting here too. But remove a counter, deal 1 damage, gain a life, put a counter on the Walking Ballista, and you have infinite damage. This is how you kill your opponents. By the way, if you have Sirda and made infinite colorless mana, you also have the win because you cast Walking Ballista for infinite, and that's also infinite damage. Now, I want to emphasize that this is a very mana-intensive, expensive combo finish. However, when you're winning the game with Underworld Breach, Lion's Diamond, and Brain Freeze, you're usually getting the mana you need to resolve this, because with Lion's Diamond, you cast it like 3 times, you have 9 mana, and that's done. All you basically needed to do was remove 9 cards from your graveyard and solved. And Brain Freeze is gonna give you more than 9 cards. However, side note, you don't technically need the Heliod and Walking Ballista because you can just win with Underworld Breach and Brain Freeze. You mill out all of your opponents and you force them to draw cards somehow. Like cast a Wheel of Fortune. Make sure you have more than 7 cards left in your deck so you don't accidentally create a draw. But you can kinda see that, yeah, we don't have to have Heliod, but he's cool. Especially considering Heliod is actually a god. Now, he demands devotion of 5 white so he can attack, so the chance of him actually generating experience counter for you is not that great, but it can happen. We have Esper Sentinels, we have Grand Abolisher, we have Voice of Victory, we have Smothering Tide. Kratos is white identity himself for 1, so with these 2 in play, you just need 3 more, so it's not impossible, but don't take it for granted. However, here we do have some really cool synergies of why Walking Ballista is kind of an interesting card inside this build. So you're always going to have access to your Kratos, and the core game plan is to make him build experience counters for you. The secondary part where he put counters on your creatures, that's just a small bonus effect. The entire part of, yeah sure he gives you Voltron, that's just a, sure, cute extra topping on the cake. The part where he can put counters on the Walking Ballista, now we're cooking. So you can build up your shotgun, and whenever that annoying Orcish Bowmaster comes into play, boom, it's gone. Kill enemy Esper Sentinels, kill Daffy Voidwalkers, kill opposition agents, kill Tymnas, Nayelas, Sisei, Bloomtenders, Kinnan. There's a lot of creatures you need to get rid of sometimes. So Walking Ballista is not a dead card inside this build. It has synergy directly with one of the commanders. So I often talk about dead cards and try not to build a trap. Walking Ballista is like, yeah, it's good on its own. So there's a reason to actually include the Heliod Walking Ballista combo inside this deck already, as both cards are individually kinda good here. Still on the topic of Kratos muscle pump, there are other creatures that do benefit from gaining a little bit of a power. We all know that Esper Sentinel is a pretty good card on its own, but you can make it better. You can make it harder for your opponents to actually pay the Esper Sentinel tax here. That's good. Same thing with Polywog Prodigy. Now this is of a tricky creature, and I have said that you kinda need to have something that is boosting Polywog Prodigy's power in general. The more typical way to do this is have a lot of creatures in your build with a high power and toughness, so you evolve it efficiently. But you literally only need Kratos, and then your Polywog Prodigy is going to get big just from that. There are a few lands we need to talk about here. So we have the school that can untap the One Ring. That's a given, that's great, we want to have that, like perfect, beautiful. I don't think I need to explain that part more, but the school can also untap any legendary card like the commander, Ephyros, the impulsive sun. So Minamau's schools at Water Edge is great with the One Ring already, and it's gonna be great without the One Ring. In any case, the school is gonna be great whatever situation you have it. But another card I really wanna highlight here is Hall of the Bandit Lord. So you prefer to have haste on your stuff, because with haste, Kratos can attack the same turn he comes into play. Now sure, if you have like Kratos and the Sol Ring, he comes into play turn 2 and he attacks on turn 3. Now with Hall of the Bandit Warlord coming into play tapped, it's kinda gonna have Kratos come into play one turn later. But normally as he has a 4 CMC mana cost, it doesn't really matter, because he will still kinda come into play turn 3. And if he comes into play on turn 3 with Hall of the Bandit Warlord, that is the same as if he came into play turn 2 with a Sol Ring, as he's going to be able to attack first at turn 3. Which actually starts to talk about the big problem of this deck, that it's gonna demand a lot of setup, but we will get back to that. Because one thing we want to emphasize more here once again is that Hall of the Bandit Warlord will also give haste to your sun. He will be able to activate the same turn you cast him. On the other hand, he costs 3 mana to cast, 3 mana to activate, so like, yeah, you need setup here. To improve your setup, you might be looking into more gods or creatures that aren't gods but generate experience. One card here that is very good is Katara Waterbending Master. I've actually made a cEDH card review for her, where I basically said she's great on her own. She's going to generate a lot of experience counters just by you sitting there and casting Brainstorm, Cyclonic Rift, Force of Will, Mental Misstep, Force of Fierce Guardianship, Force of Negation, etc. on your opponent's turn. Whenever you cast something on an opponent's turn, you get an experience counter. And when she attacks, she draws cards equal to experience counter. Kratos is going to boost Katara Waterbending Master, making her card ability better. It's like Kratos is helping both Katara and his son produce better. He's a very good teacher, but the waterbending girl will also create experience counters for the sun. So she's like, this is a beautiful synergy. She's almost like the perfect finish, the great mother in this duo that is now becoming a trio. If you could have her as a companion, that would fit perfectly, kinda. No, she's in the wrong lore, but yeah, you get the point. I think that she's more or less an out to include in this commander concept. These are all the lands that we're playing, already mentioned the school and Hall of the Bandit Warlord. I want to emphasize Ancient Tomb and City of Traitors, because you do want your commanders into play early, or if you have the One Ring in your hand, you can get the One Ring into play earlier too. These are all the instants that we're playing, and I need to disappear so you can actually see them all. There's some clear typical ones, but you can replace and change a lot depending on what kind of cards you think are better. I haven't actually included Intuition or Gifts Ungiven, but those are worthy considerations. So we have more or less covered the basic core concept. How good is it then in the final verdict of this? We're gonna have the commander Kratos coming into play first, so he can build experience counters, because the sun actually doesn't do anything if you don't have experience counters. So you need Kratos in play first. Then we're gonna get the kid into play, and then he is gonna draw cards for us later in the game. And if I'm gonna be honest, this is just an enormous amount of setup. A personal better pathway is that turn 1 Polywold Prodigy or the Esper Sentinel or Rhystic Study or Mystic Remora in general, and then later you get Kratos into play and he can boost the Esper Sentinel or the Polywold Prodigy. That might be a safer start, because once the sun comes into play, you're just literally drawing one card, and we're on turn 4-5 now, so that's just extremely slow. And then later to make him into the card draw monster boss that wins the game in a storm concept, that is going to take more time. So once again, I don't think that your plan A focus should be to just get these two into play and start working together towards a storm victory. This might be a better recommended aim, so to say. This is achievable. Getting these two into play and then boosting the frog, that's something you can do. And he's gonna do a good job of that, while you're trying to control your opponents with mighty blue magic. Until you've basically reached this point where you win the match. That is kind of the game plan in a summary. But why in the world would you build this then? If this is, like, in the end going to kind of struggle because it's demanding a lot of setup, like, why would you ever consider this in a cEDH setting? The answer is kind of simple. Building this deck was, in the end, a lot of fun. You see, there's a lot of different things that just synergize with this and just joins together kind of beautifully. The part where Heliod is good with Kratos and Walking Ballista is also good with Kratos felt great. And finding a finisher to that also felt great. Also the part where Katara, Waterbending Master and Kratos had a synergy too felt good as well. Likewise with Kratos and Esper Sentinel. What this deck basically does is give you a big different feeling of what cEDH games can deliver for you. Most cEDH decks are in general kind of the same, similar to some point. This is like having a Voltron backup concept together with boosting a lot of cEDH value engine creature cards, as well as having like the one ring in the command zone you can boost over time. So in the end, I'm not going to really recommend this for a tournament, so that entire cEDH League Discord I talked about, this might not be for that. But it's definitely something for like a lower power setting of sorts, where the games go a little bit longer and you have time to build and set up your big master machine. But who knows, over time we will see if this actually has the legs in a bigger setting. I do think that it can win a game here and there in cEDH tournaments, just because of the fact that you do have that Underworld Breach Lion's Diamond in the deck, so that wins games quite often on its own, regardless of the color identities. But I truly believe this is going to be a very fun deck to pilot. And I am personally going to give it a go. I have a feeling I'm going to lose a bunch with it, but I will try to do my best. I definitely think that there are situations where, yeah, this is working out great. The part where you get Esper Sentinel turn 1 and maybe Kratos, if you're lucky, turn 2 or turn 3, and you build Esper Sentinel's power, yeah, that's gonna look kinda cool. And with an early Esper Sentinel, you will be able to draw into your Force of Wills and your key cards to stop your opponents, which allows you to get the time to eventually build the father and son concept and smash for a victory. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.